We're going deep with Bobby Marks. We're going to talk about all the offseason stuff that is still worth talking about now. We're going to talk LeBron, also what's going on, the anatomy of a bad deal, and then we just keep going and going and going. So it was fun there. And we've got a longer life advice for you with Kyle getting ready for a celebration of America's independence. So holiday themed. Have a great holiday, everybody. Checking out the pod. We'll talk to you again. Normal schedule next week, Tuesday, Thursday. Bobby Marks, NBA insider from ESPN, former front office member. Great time to have him on. I thought I'd be able to wait a little bit longer, but we're just not ready to because I want to talk about the offseason in a very normal way, and then obviously the expertise that you bring into all this stuff. So now that we've had a few days to think about the Milwaukee Pacers decision, we know Turner goes to Milwaukee, the stretch on Dame. Yeah. The more I thought about it, and I opened the show on Tuesday with it, it's like I could make an argument that I don't like it for either side. In a way, give me a sense of how desperate the Bucks were to do something like this for Myles Turner.
Yeah, I think that it's funny. There's probably like 7 different layers we could look at it. I think from the stretch provision, stretching his number over 5 years at $22.5 million. Really, that was really their loan option, right? They basically had the option of running it back with this group. That lost in the first round, Lopez, and they certainly brought some of these guys back with Gary Trent and Bobby Portis, because where they were financially, it was like, right, we just have the non-tax mid-level exception, right? Like that was it. Like that was our big thing we could go out and use. The stretch provision was really their loan get out of jail free card, right? Like that was it. Like that was the one where if they were going to create cap space. And we all, I would say 99% of the NBA didn't see it coming, right? Like we're like, oh, wait, I didn't write about it. We didn't write, because you never think about stretching that amount of money over a period of 5 years. It's the biggest ever. But yeah, I mean, I said this on TV yesterday, because I know they're getting hammered and stuff, reckless. I heard all these different things. And I said, well, listen, I've been there before. When you have a generational player, and I never had a guy like Giannis. When you have a generational player like Giannis and you basically are running out of options, in year 3, 4, and 5, Ryan, that's going to be someone who takes over your job's mess to clean up. Like you're thinking about right now, man. Like it should be, the norm should be you're operating in a 3-year window, especially in this day and age, how you do it all. They're operating like day to day. Like they're operating like we got to do as much as we can because we've got this guy on our roster to try to build as much of a good team as possible. Now, there's the other layer where you can make the argument, okay, we're gonna decide in mid-June we're gonna use the stretch provision on Damian Lillard. Who are the other free agents out there that we can maybe use that money on, whether it be taking $26 million and splitting it up into 2 guys or 3 guys and just building it out there, or is it Turner's your guy? And I get it, he's the best center available here, so you can make that argument too, as far as what you do with that money instead of just spending it all on one person.
Well, I guess there's probably another part where you could say if the cap continues to project a 10% increases, and I think sometimes it'll be estimates where it's like, oh, it's only going to be 7, then it's ended up 10. The revenue stuff has been really good, and no matter what the BRI is, it's a 10%. It's different than the Durant offseason there in 16, where a 10% max, but now at 150 plus million salary cap, I could see Horst in the front office going, this is a bit like the NFL cap. Like whenever you see bad cap situations in the NFL, I have almost no sympathy because it's like you get this extra bonus every single year. And in this case, if you're talking at like 15 million, now it doesn't mean you're going to have the flexibility to replace Dame at 22.5 because of the spike, but 22 million in dead cap in 3 years, you should be able to figure out a way to anticipate that much better than, say, a cap that was at 112 million 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and especially because your cap, you can only cap the max amount is 15% of the cap. So eventually, so they're right at that number this year. So eventually, 2 years from that percentage of the cap might be like 7%, 8%. It's going to come down. Listen, I understand why Milwaukee did it. I hate dead money because it's not a person. You can never trade it. It's going to sit there forever. But as I said, you're thinking about the now, as far as you're just thinking like, we need to go out and, change this roster up. They brought some of the old back, some of the new, and then you get a guy like Turner. So I get why John and that group wound up doing that.
What happens, and I don't mean to go back to July of 2013 and your time with the Nets. Everybody knows this deal. You and I have talked about it multiple times, but you have Prokhorov as an owner who didn't understand it. You have Billy King, who's, answering to him. You're working in that front office. Can you help those of us that have never had that experience understand the anatomy of what ends up becoming this kind of like team altering? And historically it looks, it's an awful deal, but I don't know that Milwaukee's we're going to be sitting here 3 years from now going like, oh my God, because we're not talking about draft picks and then guys turning into future all-stars with Tatum and Brown, but how you get down this path of desperation where maybe everybody in the room who's in this discussion is looking at each other going, are we really going to do this?
Yeah, it's almost like you giving me $100 and you say like, when do you want to spend it? Right? You want to spend it now or you want to spend it in 3 years from now? And I said, well, I'm going to spend 90 right now and it's on a bad investment. And I only got $10 left. And then you basically keep on borrowing, right? You keep on borrowing and borrowing. And then basically you're running out of options. So it's like similar, like the Boston trade in 13, it's like, we wanted to spend now, right? Like meaning going for it right then. And then what happens, it creates a snowball effect where, all right, now we only have one first round pick left. Okay, what are we going to use it on? Like I never told the story. Like we were close to acquiring Kyle Lowry when Kyle was, I think he was in Memphis or I don't know if he was. I think maybe towards the tip when things weren't going well in Toronto. And it was like, man, do we really want? We got one draft pick left. Like, do we want to go out and spend it on him? But what happens is it just when you make a mistake, it keeps on compounding. Because you're never going to get out of the hole that you dug yourself in unless, Milwaukee gets good fortune and they go out and, win a championship here. But in the Brooklyn days, what happens is when you have a change of course of direction like we did, what you did now becomes extremely magnified because like we're going to go in a different direction now, right? Well, wait a minute, we just traded 4 first-round picks, right? Like, hey, like we just let Pierce go to the Clippers. We're going to trade Garnett for Thaddeus Young, like all these. So if you're going to go all in, you better be all in, but also have the optionality to fix some of the problems here. Like Mike Dunleavy Jr. said, I was reading a comment from him. He said, like, the worst thing you could be in the NBA is have no options, right? Optionality. Like if you trade all your draft picks and then you have nothing left, and then what will happen is like Phoenix, right? So Phoenix trades all those picks to Brooklyn and for Durant. Then they trade for Beal and like, where's the picks? Oh, now we're going to swap, right? It's basically you keep on borrowing against your 401k, right? And the interest rate is keep on going higher and higher. And then when you want to cash out, you basically owe money left. And that's the worst spot to be in when you're trying to build a roster.
Is that simply because of like the unknown here? Because you can even pitch it back to the Milwaukee topic. Everything is about keeping Giannis happy, and it's, I guess, a year-to-year thing. It'd be really nice if, like, Giannis could say, well, maybe Giannis can't say, like, hey, let's look at where we're at the trade deadline. Let's look where we're at 26. If I'm a Bucks fan, I'm absolutely sick of everybody talking about how he's going to be gone all the time. If this were a Giannis short, then you'd be paying the premiums on this for like so long. It's like, well, you're even right if he ends up leaving somewhere else, because you guys in the media have been talking about it for year after year after year. But is there a conversation? And again, it's specific to the personality of the player that is the face of your franchise. But you're like, hey, we can make 25, 26 like a little bit better. We bring in Turner. Dame wasn't going to play anyway. We're moving him out. We're kind of all in on this stuff. We still have all these picks due. I guess they have one first that they could move. And correct me on that because I know it's
32. Yeah.
Right. Sure. So like I always think back, and I'm not really ready to ask the question yet, but I think back to those LeBron years, the first time he was with Cleveland, and he just is so convinced that keeping ownership in the front office in the dark and not being a good partner, that's the right way to go. He wants everyone around him to have this anxiety, and he feels as if like if they don't have that anxiety, they won't be as motivated to compete. And I think Steph is a perfect example of you actually don't have to operate that way. And they were doing very incremental deals that cost more and more and put them in an even worse spot. And then in 2010, it's like, all right, well, now that I'm out of here, after they've done the Ben Wallace deal, they've done the Larry Hughes into Zerbiak, into Drew Gooden. You know what I mean? They were just doing whatever they could. They were scrambling. You just wonder if Milwaukee, like, hey, Giannis, here's our first option. We'll be better this year. But if we do that, like, we have even less options, and we're not even like, this is the problem with the Turner acquisition. What does that guarantee you? Does it even guarantee you a higher seed than 5 or 6 in the East? And it's more open. We understand because of the injuries, but it doesn't really guarantee you anything. And it's a super aggressive thing. And I just wonder if it's any kind of conversation that can happen, or if it's the simple case of an athlete being like, just cannot comprehend waiting a year because they're athletes.
Well, I mean, I think the odds are out in the East as of today. They're 8th in the Eastern Conference, and this is an Eastern Conference that's supposed to be pretty wide open, right? I mean, there's a parity there, and that's, it didn't move the needle. You mentioned LeBron years, the first go in Cleveland, like there's collateral damage when he left, right? Like it took them 5 years before everything worked out, and he had to come back.
Yeah. So was it planning or was it?
So here's my concern with Milwaukee. If this doesn't work in a year from now you got a guy in the last year's contract technically, and you're basically sitting on $25 million for it. And I mean, that's playing Monday morning quarterback a little bit, but whatever you did, now there's collateral damage, right? There's collateral damage as far as what you did this offseason here. And you have a guy next year and you're maybe sitting in the same spot, losing in the first round, because there's no guarantee you're going to go any further. So it's in one way you can make the argument that you understand why Milwaukee did it, but on the other end, like eventually, like there is the collateral damage effect that because of this move.
Let's talk LeBron. What's actually even possible if he wants to get weird?
Well, I drew the ire of certain people on Monday when I said that there was no market for him, but I said it, and I got aggregated by my own company. So I will, there was a but to it, right? Like there was like, it was like the Biomark says there's no market for LeBron, but the but part didn't get the video part was there, but the other part, and what I said there was no market for him, but here's why, right? Here's why. He has no trade clause, so he dictates the term. He's on the last year of his expiring contract. He makes $53 million. And I talked to teams on Sunday. Did I call 30 or 29 teams? No. But I talked to enough that I got enough conviction. And basically it was, hey, it's bad business, right? Like, why am I trading 4 guys for a guy that's going to be here for a year? It's bad business. Like if you're, listen, Cleveland was one of those teams that people were talking about. And then we bring in these rules, second apron, and basically got to trade like $70 million in players, right? For one year of LeBron and everything like that. I think for LeBron, it's interesting because the statement comes out on Sunday. What does it mean, right? Does he, is he watching this roster and is going to ask to be traded? I don't think so. I mean, that's hard to believe. That might change during the regular season. If this team struggles and you have a guy on an expiring contract, does he want to be up there where OKC is and maybe Houston and add the pieces? Probably. But here's the problem with that. Twofold. If LeBron thought that his best option of winning a championship was not in LA, and I don't want to speak for his $53 million, he could have just opted out of his contract and pick a team where he wanted to go. And that's the reality of it. You could have won East and played in New York. They could have kept their roster intact here. So that is the one, option there. Certainly you're hearing like, well, would the Lakers ever do a buyout if things got, and I'm thinking like, why? Like what help does it make it to the Lakers? Like you're not going to be able to go out and get a $30 million replacement for him. You're still had the non-taxman level exception. And then there's the other part of it where, and I've never really seen this before, is that you have 2 generational players, one in his prime in Luka and one that is close to retiring in LeBron. And your goal is to build your roster around your younger player. And your goal is to have as much flexibility and not mortgage the house in taking back bad contracts and bad short-term deals. But then on the other end, you have your other generational player who's in the last year's contract saying, "Wait a minute, are we not getting better?" Right? So it's like a seesaw, right? It's like a balancing act, and that's a tough for Rob Pelinka, because when I did the Luka trade, it was about the future, right? Like it was about the future as far as how we're going to build this roster moving forward.
I'm with you on the LeBron thing. I mean, this Cleveland thing that keeps getting brought up because the salary that you would have to match to even make it work. It's like, why am I moving multi-year assets for a 1-year deal here? And look at, as great as he is, beyond an age that we'd expect to make all NBA, to put up the numbers that he puts up, Cleveland's not better with LeBron than they are with their 4 guys. I don't understand it, other than I don't know really what the reason would be. And I think it's really important to him to stay in LA for the business opportunities. Clearly that's a big part of all of this stuff, and some of the stuff that they're trying to do. Would you get weird with the Lakers? Would you get weird with this fan base that already has kind of a weird thing with you anyway, because you're not Kobe? I don't know if that means all of a sudden like business opportunities aren't there for him, but this is a really passionate place out here about their basketball team.
I saw me and Wendy went out and had like a slice of pizza during our break downtown, and we're sitting there, and some random guy comes over, and he was like, "You want to talk to us and tell us why Kobe was better than LeBron?" It was just like people are like passionate about certainly the Lakers and that argument and all that stuff. So it's going to be fascinating here, because here's the thing. And I said this morning, like, what happens? Okay, everything's fine. They go out, maybe make another move. You get to training camp, and all of a sudden, like, we get to like December and they're 500, right? Now you got a guy on an expiring contract, and you're not bringing, like, now do we think about moving him? Would he want to get moved? Like, there's all these other mechanisms as far as like I'm not ready to go there right now as far as with trades and all that stuff, but it's just like there are a lot of different things as far as what you have to be prepared for everything if you're in that Laker front office.
Yeah, I think as great as he is, I don't know that it's almost like he doesn't like the quiet. I think he really enjoys the noise. He enjoys the speculation, and you think you just want to be kind of at peace at some point. And being at peace doesn't mean that you're not a competitor. Again, I would offer up Steph as an example of like, you don't have to worry about all this extra shit with me. If we're bad, we're all on the same team. If we're good, we're all on the same team. And because there was like no option for any speculation with him, or maybe he wanted a bigger number on a 2-year deal with them. I don't know if that's something that was going to happen. I guess I'm a little surprised at, it's like, well, hey, this is going to get really weird. It's like, well, based on what? Just pointless speculation? Because I don't know what the basketball move is there. I mean, would you agree that LeBron, Mitchell, and Mobley isn't as good as Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Allen? Like, am I nuts? Am I nuts?
Probably Strus too. You can throw. I mean, like, just your role players are also going out and stuff. It's like, and I mean, even like, I don't want to get into hypothetical trades and stuff. Like, listen, you trade them to New York for Towns, for example, right? Now you don't understand, right? Like, it's like, can you win? Yeah, I mean, I guess, but it's like whatever. Like, as I said, I always go back to the statement, and everything the statement was interesting because it felt like in past tense, right? Like, it was like almost like thanking them, like for thanking them for the last 7 or 8 years. But it's like it goes back to winning a championship. He wants to be in a position to win a championship. Now you go, unless it's a buyout, anywhere you go is going to be taking important pieces away from that team that gives them the ability to go win a championship.
There has to be some kind of disconnect. And I don't, the Rich Paul quote about, we know they're building for Luka or whatever. Yeah. And you just go, well, all right. But I mean, were you anti the Anthony Davis Luka thing? Because it sure didn't seem like it. So I don't know, man. I love him as a player. I think there are times where I just think he kind of can't help himself. It's like, hey, nobody's really been talking about me. So like this way, everybody's going to talk about me.
But you know what? The other thing that's crazy, Ryan, is that it's still a team that won 50 plus games last year, and they were the 3 seed. And this year, they have the 4th best odds to win the Western Conference. Like, it wasn't like this was a 20-win team, and maybe it was the expectation based on what we saw in post deadline in March, and it was kind of like a little bit fool's gold, right? As far as, and then when you get matchups against a team like Minnesota, like, whoa, this team isn't as good as we maybe thought it was going to be. But there are still pieces there as far as for them to be a good team. Are they in OKC's level or maybe Houston or Denver? Probably not, I guess, just based off what we see in the offseason. But it isn't like he's coming back to a 25-win team. Like that's probably important to know.
Yeah, and they've added DeAndre Ayton, which a lot of people expected based on their need. I've read a few Ayton stories to the Lakers, and you get done reading a few paragraphs, and you're like, this guy sounds awesome.
Yeah, he's going to Springfield.
Well, who knows? And then you have to keep asking yourself the question after you read these summaries of all of his accolades. You're like, why is this guy available on a buyout at 26 years old, 27 later this month? It makes sense for the Lakers. I'm not an Ayton fan, but considering what they have and their options, what they gave up in a Mark Williams deal that was rescinded after the health issues, and then they get Ayton essentially for just a small investment because he's on a $34 million buyout. And again, I know that's not the total number because it'll be offset, right? But it makes all the basketball sense in the world. I would say, like, knowing his rep and what this was probably dumb for him to pick the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, it's from the Lakers' perspective, if you probably put Ayton as a free agent, like we went into June 30th as a free agent, he would probably have been probably behind Turner, right? I mean, it would probably be Turner, Ayton, Lopez, that group of guys. Steven Adams was already off the board. So if you look at it just from that pure lens, then it's a good signing for the Lakers, right? It's a 2 years, $16 million deal with a player option for next year. Like, that's a low cost based on DeAndre Ayton as a player. If he was just a free agent, we'd be like, wow, that's a great value deal, right? He fills a need and everything like that. I think the concern for me would be, why certainly the buyout in Portland, up and down years since he left Phoenix, right? It's been like not the greatest of 2 years here. Is his career, is this going to give him a jolt getting to the Lakers, or is his career trajectory going down? Right. It almost reminds me of like Andre Drummond a little bit, right? Like Andre Drummond was a max guy, and now he's basically a minimum guy, right? Like, because once you keep on going down, and he got a good year in Chicago a few years ago, but it kind of it reminds me a little bit of the trajectory of Drummond.
Yeah, I have no. I mean, this is a home run for the Lakers, considering options, considering need. I mean, it's a team that couldn't put a center out on the floor against Minnesota of all teams because they couldn't play Jackson Hayes. And I think Lakers fans are probably going to be a little too hyped about it. And sure, look, he's probably going to have like a really good game. He'll probably have 20 and 14 in a game early, and then everybody will get really, really excited. But I don't know. I would suggest there's a lot of evidence in his stops that he does not have the personality that will match what is going to be asked of him. But we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. The biggest concern for me with the Lakers is, and I was doing the touchscreen yesterday on TV. We were doing a depth chart, and it was one of those like moments when like we're about to do it, and I look at their backcourt depth, and I was like, whoa, whoa. And it's Shake Milton, Jordan Goodwin, Bronny James, Gabe Vincent, and Dalton Connect. I'm like, man, that's some tough sledding right there.
Jordan's a dog, though.
Yeah.
Man. That guy got after it in his minutes out there. So we'll see if he improves upon that. There was a pretty interesting recap of the Pelicans deal where the Hawks, it was the assistant GM talking. Well, I guess we should just say on one side is the assistant GM, Troy Weaver's GM under Dumars with the Pelicans. And then when you have the main GM in Atlanta have to call Joe Dumars to make sure this is accurate because they're being offered the unprotected pick in 26. When you read something like that, what do you think of?
It's funny. I talked to a team exec this week, and they said, I wanted to talk to him about it. And he's like, I wonder how many teams actually passed on that deal. Like, He's like, that's the biggest curiosity to me. How many of those teams that were, maybe before them that passed on that deal here? I mean, I look at it in like multiple different ways, probably two lenses. If you told me you walked out of the draft night with Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen, I would be like, well, that's a good draft, right? Like you get a guard, you get a big, you need a big and stuff like that. But then you tell me like, whoa, we had to move up 10 spots and potentially give up a lottery pick to do it. I would have said, holy God. And I say that in this way. We had a 1 year when we signed and traded Kenyon Martin to Denver. This was 2004. We wound up getting like 3 firsts. One of those firsts was an unprotected first from the Clippers. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And that was a Clippers team was like bad. Like they were bad. And that pick wound up turning out to be like the 25th pick in a draft because the Clippers actually had a good year. They had 2 years later, right?
Sure.
So you never know. But here's why I think there's so much scrutiny on it is because of circumstances. New Orleans plays in the Western Conference. Okay. Can you make a guarantee they're a top 8 team in the Western Conference? I can't. Milwaukee is the other part of the pick. Can you guarantee that there's not going to be dysfunction there this year and that they'll make the playoffs and that's fine. But then guess what? We're going to wind up getting that Pelicans pick back. It's not the least favorable. It's the most favorable that you're getting here. And I think that's why there's so much scrutiny as far as what was given up. So that is a high risk move, man. Like that is to move up 10 spots to do that. And it's not the, I heard Bill's, comments and stuff like that. Like Bill, it's not us media like crushing New Orleans. Ryan, you talk to teams. Like that was the comment. Like I had text during that night where I'm on live TV, and it's like GMs text me like WTF, like what is going, like it wasn't, we're not making all this stuff up. That is the perception of teams. Like what are they doing, man? And what happens is, and I go back to my days in Brooklyn and New Jersey, when you think the roster is better than what it is, you think you can make those trades because you're like, oh yeah, we're going to win 45 games next year. And then when you're in February, you're like, you're 18-32. You're like, holy crap, what the hell did we just do? So that is kind of like, and it's interesting because it's not like Joe had been there. Joe Dumars has just come into this group, right? He doesn't really know what, he can watch them on film, but he doesn't know until you put them on the court and you get Jordan Poole in that trade with Sadiq Bey. Like, you don't know when DeJounte Murray's coming back. You're going to trust Zion Williamson, a guy who's played 40% of his games since he's come into the league, that you're going to be a playoff team next year? Man, that is a huge, huge gamble.
I just don't understand why they kept moving back, how it went from protected versions of it to unprotected. I mean, granted, they didn't care that you could say technically the pick was getting worse as each pick goes off the board, because for them it was only about Queen. So as long as Queen is still on it, they're still looking at it as the same incoming transaction. But I would have been, Saleh is the GM now, like I would have been nervous to call the Pelicans again to be like, are you really doing this?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. I had to, not anyone involved with the trade, but I texted a buddy of mine who worked for a team, and I go, can you just text me what the language they're going to use in that, just to make sure I'm good, right? Like, I'm like, what do you think the land? Like, no, this is what it's going to be. I'm like, holy God. And I think what happens too the night of the draft, and when you have deadlines, like when you have, like, they're on the clock, right?
Yeah.
You're on it's almost like trade deadline, 3:00 Eastern, right? Yeah. When there are rookie extension deadline in October, when you are dealing with extensions, it brings out a different level of desperation. Like it's like almost like you're playing blackjack and stuff like that, right? And you're like, you keep on losing, you keep on going to the ATM machine and stuff like that. It's like, walk away, man. Like, walk away. You don't have to do it right now. Regroup and then kind of figure it out.
Do teams call other teams while they're on the clock tactically just to fuck them up and distract them from something that they may want coming from someone else?
So it happens all the time. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, listen, we, it would have been interesting. Like we had, Philly was an interesting team for us with at number 3, and supposedly the asking price was pretty significant, to move up to get there, like multiples, ones, maybe even 3 ones, and come on, right? But it would have been, like if I was in a front office, I would have probably called and be like, hey, 2 ones, just so just to kind of like screw up a team and everything like that. Oh yeah, teams screw with each other all the time as far as what, hey, well, would you do this? And be like, oh, they get them going and stuff, and be like, we had a trade once, funny story, with Chicago, and they had 2 first-round picks in the draft. I think it was the year they picked Luell, dang, and they said, we're going to give you our two first or something like that. And it was, we thought it was the second pick in the draft. He said 2 first. And it was like the later ones, so we're all like, whoa, holy cow, these guys are going to offer us the second pick in the draft for this future first or whatever. And you get to do the call and be like, no, it's the 21st pick in the draft. It's like, so yeah, I think it's that's why, like, when you go in there, you got to have a plan, man, you kind of just stick to the plan. Don't deviate when chaos happens.
That's great. Yeah, I imagine you have to figure it out on the other side of it too. It's like, okay, these guys are just wasting our time. Now we have 3.5 minutes left on granted, you can call before they're actually technically on the clock, but I could see the value in just trying to take up time so they're not talking to somebody else that might be a little bit more real. I love that old Ainge Brian Colangelo clip that came out. That was a long time ago. And Brian was running the Raptors, and there was a player that was falling. And I can't believe this stuff gets out sometimes. And it's Colangelo calling Ainge to be like, hey, do you have like a report? Like, what's going on with him? And he's like, I'm not telling you. Brian's like, what do you mean, Danny? Like, you're not. He's like, I'm not telling you. Not telling you. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, listen, I think nowadays there's more information out there for teams. The interesting thing was when players wouldn't go to Chicago and you never had their medical.
Yeah, right. Like, that wasn't that long ago.
No, I remember we were on TV. I think Jaren Jackson Jr.'s year, like he wouldn't go to Memphis and visit or something. I don't know. There's something where he wouldn't visit somewhere. And the question was like, would you draft a player if he didn't have his medicals? And I was like, ooh, geez, that's a risk, Nowadays, everything is available. But the information gathering, it's interesting as far as what teams were willing to share. I mean, I wouldn't want to share anything. Like, why? What is the benefit of us sharing information that that another team doesn't have?
Well, I guess you could say the Pelicans are sharers. They're sharers, at least on, because the assistant GM was working with the Pelicans this whole time. So I don't know if that trade happens. I don't know if that happens if there's not the relationship of the inner workings with Bryson, who is under Russillo there. Okay, let's talk Nets. We don't need to go through all the 5 draft picks again. We've already covered that in the past week. But, I look at the Terrence Mann deal. It's like, okay, this is what they're doing with their cap space. Like, as we kept playing the game of like Haywood Harden. Well, I don't think the Nets are re-signing Harden, even if they loved the guy. And considering, there just wasn't like, hey, could Turner go there, right? So anybody that was looking for that number north of 20 million and only one team, the oddity of one team having significant cap space, it felt like everybody was right about this and exactly what they're doing, parking bad contracts there, bringing in assets. I'd argue to get off of Michael Porter Jr.'s next 2 years, you probably would have had to attach a first just to get off of that deal. And then to give up Cam Johnson going the other way, I don't think that's enough. I mean, granted, it's a 2032 unprotected from Denver. Jokic is 37 at the time. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't know, man. This has been a rough week for them, at least our initial reaction to the moves that have been made.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, going into the offseason, they controlled the draft and they controlled free agency. They were going to have a big role in it. Regarding the draft, and not to get into every pick and stuff, we had a production meeting on Wednesday morning before the draft, and I went in there. I think a couple people almost felt, and I said, hey, we just need to be prepared that Brooklyn takes all 5 first-round picks. And they're like, what? Like, I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, we need to be Like, don't be caught off guard if we get to pick 27 and they're like, is this Brooklyn's? I'm like, just be prepared and stuff like that. So it wasn't surprising to me that they took that approach. I mean, certainly we can talk about who they picked and all that. And it was pretty interesting. But cap space is interesting because there's a lot of different ways you can go about using it. I agree with you on, I'm not a huge Porter Jr. fan at all.
I'm not either. That's also,
and it's interesting, Ryan. It's like, we live in a world where guys usually get scrutinized when you're on like max contracts. And I felt like he's gotten a pass, like as far as because of maybe the success they've had and Jokic has basically camouflaged a lot of things for.
He's the third option. They already have a title. I mean, he's never even really the two when they're closing. He gets benched, and then it was the shoulder injury, which did look like it was limiting him somewhat. But like, I don't need to keep going. Everybody's heard it from me already.
I think so like if I was like, for me, like I would. You're right. I think you definitely had to attach something to it. But like, what are you going to do with him? Right? Like it's hard to flip him again for something because I don't think
maybe.
Maybe
that seems to be the rationale around it. Like, hey, a year left, he'd probably put up some numbers. Like, who knows? I mean, because Cam Thomas is going to cut it, but there should be plenty of shots for him if he could play next to Jokic and Murray. There should be more shots for him with this Nets team. But that's the thing is like, who's going to like him? I mean, it's funny too because we talk about expiring all the time. Because back when we were younger, it's like expiring. So, but hey, when it's $40 million and it's expiring, there aren't a lot of play. No. Like we should stop emphasizing the expiring as this awesome asset when it's a massive number for what is a guy. I bet you a lot of smart basketball people aren't huge fans of either.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and it's certainly, it's like what the system is in Brooklyn. As you said, he's going to get a lot of shots up and he's probably going to score a lot of points. But you look at kind of the situation that's going on with like Cam Thomas right now, right? Like you would have thought a guy that, I don't know, top 15 in the league in scoring before he got hurt. Guy that can come in and put 30 up and had some really terrific stretches and played it better last year. There would have been like some teams waiting, and put an offer sheet, or maybe he's sitting there right now. Him and the other group of restricted free agents, Kuminga and Giddey and Quentin Grimes. And so it's like when you play on a team that's, rebuilding and your numbers are inflated. Right. Like, I think if you're a team out there for Porter Jr. next year, you kind of take a pause, right? Is this, what player are we getting? The Michael Porter Jr. we saw in Brooklyn that was averaging 28 points a game and was shooting, 46 from the field. Are we getting the guy in Denver, who's your third or fourth best option, but at a price tag of $40 million plus?
Do you like the restricted tag? Because it leads to some really hurt feelings.
It really does. I mean, there's some gulfs between what teams are offering. It's almost like hockey. I remember when we were merged with the Devils. This was a long time ago, and Lou Lamoriello ran both teams. And I went in one day and talked to him about. I wanted to learn about like arbitration, hockey arbitration. And he said it's like the most awful thing because you're basically sitting there and telling your player like he sucks, it's like, and then you walk out and you're trying to be friends again after you just lowballed them by like $7 million. So it's so hard because here, I mean, like restricted free agency, because I looked this up the other day. In the last 10 years, there's only been 5 players that signed qualifying offers. So is this going to be the year we see it? Kuminga, and I don't want to say there's no market, but it's really just Brooklyn on an island by himself. And there's the sign-in trades are hard too with restricted guys because it has to be a 3-year contract. So if you're Jonathan Kuminga and you're like, some team wants to sign and trade you for 3 years, $45 million. We have breaking news here or nothing? Oh, no. I saw a Shams notification come up. I was like, if you sign him for 3, then he's like, I'm on a bad contract, right? Like it's so hard. And the other thing too is if you sign a QO, you basically have a de facto no trade clause because of it. You're on a 1-year contract. And if you approve to get traded, you lose your bird rights to that team and they won't have the ability. So it's like, I don't love it. I mean, I understand protecting the team, but it's almost like the window should expire. Like if you don't have anything done by like mid-July, like there has to be a clock for the team also. Like, it just can't be like the guy just sitting there being like, well, what do I do? There's no money out there.
Yeah, especially when there's no money out there right now. None of these guys want to sign a qualifying offer because then the team that has the rights is going to go, great, I can't believe you did that. Like, there's been times in the past where I've talked to the team that's had the restricted free agent. And then, I mean, you're right. It used to happen a little bit more often. It just doesn't happen really at all anymore. But they would be like, we're thrilled because it was a lower deal. Like, sometimes you'll want your guy to sign an offer with someone else because it can't be close to the maximum that he can get, both length and dollars, as the bird rights team. So there'd be times where somebody would sign. I remember, I'm not going to say the name because I remember the GM that did it, and the other team was just like, that was the dumbest thing ever. We matched it in 2 seconds. It was awesome.
Well, I mean, listen, you go back to the Nets when they signed those guys to this offer sheet, Alan Crabb and Otto Porter, and they're like, everyone was like, oh, these guys are the smartest guys in ever. I mean, can you imagine if you got stuck with those contracts? Otto Porter, Max. We had a story.
They matched on Alan Crabb.
They did, all those guys, like all those guys. We had it's a funny story for you.
I never forget Alan Crabb because, I mean, that's like the all-time peak excess.
We had the 2010, the year that all that money was the cap space, LeBron free agency year. We had all this money and we couldn't sign any guys. And and so we were trying to figure out, like, what do we do with this money and stuff? So we wound up giving we did sign Travis out, like Tyrus Thomas, another quality wing. He
could do a lot of things, Bobby. I'm just saying, he played in a different system.
We agreed on a 4-year, $32 million contract, which $8 million a year in 2010 was like in the mid-20s nowadays, right? And we went to lunch. Rod Thorne and I went to lunch, and I remember sitting in the car with him. I'm like, God, Rod, I hope they match this offer sheet. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, God, I don't know. I don't feel good about this one, right? So we get back to the office, and Brian Elphis, his agent, calls, and he goes, hey, I got bad news for you. I'm like, what? He goes, Michael's going to match that offer sheet and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, thank God. It's like, but that's the downside if you want to come in and put an offer sheet on it just to screw around with teams, is if a team doesn't match, you're like, oh my God, we're stuck with this contract.
Yeah, there was 2 teams that felt like they were going back and forth on just messing with each other. You could probably remember. I'm not going to say that, but it just felt like there was one offer sheet signed, and then the other team was so mad about it, which I didn't really understand why they were so mad, because it was whatever. And then there was a cycle where it felt like these 2 teams were just going at it with each other when they didn't even want the other guy.
The crazy thing, dating back, offer sheets, you used to have to hand deliver them in person.
Like being served?
Yes. So 2 stories for this. Week before, this was in 2011, I think. Week before Christmas, I'm sitting in my office. This is Presty. I'm sitting in my office and knocking on the door. Mr. Marks, I'm John Smith from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Here's a offer sheet for Nenad Kristic. And I was like, Jesus God, right? So that you used
stretch 5.
You had to come and do. When we signed Tom McCullough in 2001 to an offer sheet, I took the train down to Philly, knocked on Billy King's door. He goes, yeah, hey, how you doing? I'm like, here you go. You've been served. Here's your offer sheet, and got on the train and went back home.
Why?
And then
Why
they changed the rules.
So funny.
What happened was they changed the rules because I think it was Jeremy Lin, right? So I think I don't know, or someone was putting an offer sheet, and like the team would be like hiding, right? Like the person who was serving, like they wouldn't open their door, right? Like you see them out there and like, we're not open, like we don't, like, so you basically would hide from.
Well, it's Daryl, wasn't it? I doubt Daryl got on the train, but
so you would hide from. Now it's like digital, right? Now it's like with like you just can email the person, right? Like that's it. But yeah, it's funny how things have evolved.
Last thing, Beal buyout. What do you expect there?
Well, he's got to get a home first, right? You don't do it. It's not going to be the Lillard one because here's the thing with Beal. It's Lillard and him are different because Phoenix has already waived and stretched Nasir Little and I think EJ like Liddell or something like that. So they already got like $3.5 million on the books. So you can't just waive and stretch Beal without doing a buyout because it would exceed the 15% of the cap, right? So there's going to be a number. I don't know. I mean, can he get the non-tax ML on the market, which is $14 million? I went through the numbers last night. There are not as many teams that have money as you think. And there are teams that have it, but are right against the first apron, and that gets triggered if you use it and everything like that. So I would think that a buyout happens. It's a matter of like, is he willing to take a little bit less of the 110? Would he take, I don't know, 96, 97 from Phoenix if he can get 8 or 9 from another team, if he loses $3 or $4 million? I think that's the biggest question. But I think if there is a buyout, as I said, he has to take money off it. He has to take, I think, like $12, $13 million, maybe a little bit more off that number.
Yeah. So you're saying if you sign the player post buyout, then you're automatically triggering the first apron?
If you are like at Miami, for example.
For Miami.
Yeah. So like Miami, they have I think they have all their non-tax ML, which is $14 million. If you sign Bradley Beal to like a 1-year, $10 million deal, because you're spending more than 5.7 of that, you're going to trigger the first apron. And I think they're only like $10 million or $11 million below. So yeah, that's you guys have to be careful as far as where your number falls. Like the Lakers, by signing Ayton and LaRavia, they basically split up the non-tax. They have now triggered the hard cap, first apron hard cap.
Right. Okay. All right. You should do well, I don't want to add more work to your plate.
Well, you know what I was thinking? I got a suggestion for you. I don't know if my bosses here at ESPN would agree with this. I was thinking when you, Bill, and Zach do your podcast, you should have like a button you hit when like you don't know, you're not sure about a rule, and my voice appears. And it's like, like the man behind the curtain as far as like kind of like diffusing, like, when Bill's going through these like crazy trades and stuff like that, like you could just hit the button and like, it's almost like AI, right? Like where my voice would appear and we just spit out the information.
It could be like a video game where you go down to Orlando for EA Sports and you just talk for 2 straight days with any possibility. And then you could just say, hey, that triggers a first apron, or no, they can't do that. You can't aggregate salaries. That's dollar for dollar. It's not the 125. So yeah, I'll admit sometimes on the trade stuff with Bill, I feel like it's extra innings and it's a knuckleballer and I'm behind the plate and I'm like, and then Bobby will send me a text being like, you can't do that. I'm like, I don't really, Zach needs the help the least, I would say, of the 3 of us. So thank you as always for all the work. But my suggestion is you should have like, it would be good. Maybe, you get through the off season, table it until September, October, but just going through the lack of assets, the second apron teams, like the most screwed rankings. You can come up with something nicer for Disney, but just like lack of options versus the most options, and give us that perspective of like, it's not who's good or who's not. It's just, this is how stuck you are. And this is how much freedom of movement this team has because of picks, because of cap, because of how they've managed the aprons, all that stuff. Because like you dig into the Milwaukee thing and you're like, all right, to your point, to start this whole thing an hour ago, like I understand it. I don't necessarily like it, but now you're just digging and digging.
Yeah. It's almost like Denver. I don't think, like Denver's almost like in a similar position, but I think they probably have better players around Jokic with, Murray and Gordon. And
I love what Denver's done, by the way.
So that was, like they were kind of backed in a corner a little bit as far as, because they were trying to thread the needle with their young kids, right? Like we're going to build our bench with our young kids. And then it was like, oh, like these guys aren't ready yet. And it's like, what's our get out of jail free? We only have 1 first round pick to trade, right? So we're not going to go out and just waive Michael Porter Jr. and create cap space. Okay, how do we flip him for something else? And then it gives us flexibility to trade for Valanciunas, sign Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. Like that's a good way to go about building your roster.
I love what Denver's done because one, you get off of Porter Jr. sure, we could talk about an unprotected, but it's not
But
like
who
three
cares?
unprotected. It's not three unprotected. Right.
You know what? What would you rather have? Jokic under signing an extension this summer for 3 years, or that 2000, or not being here and you still have that 2032 first? Who cares?
No, I think the offseason's been awesome. And you look at the Cam, who I just like as a player. I like him as a person. I like the idea of him coming in and knowing what's needed, where Porter Jr. just seemed to be on his own program night in and night out. Bruce Brown, those catches at the free throw line and then rolling, the stuff that we saw him doing with Denver, where it's like, hey, guess what? None of this stuff is open anywhere else you're going to go. And then Hardaway taking corner threes instead of Westbrook.
Yeah.
So there's just these, because I was wondering if they would get stuck enough where they would test the waters on the Murray value around the league. If that was going to be their way to reinvent this around Jokic, I don't know, but I don't think it's, and maybe we end here because I think this is important. Like the Sexton deal happens and I'm thinking, okay, well, why would you do expiring for expiring and give up the second? Sexton is the better player than Nurkic. It's clear Utah doesn't want to keep a ton of vets on the roster because they still need to be bad next year, and they're going to be. But they don't even want the option of the vets, I think, for Will Hardy. And so then you look at, like, okay, well, how does that happen? It's like, you don't think that the front office for Utah had canvassed the entire league and got a sense of what Colin Sexton's value was, and like whatever they needed to do, that's what they wanted to do because they wanted one less guard out and one more big in. And it doesn't seem to make a ton of sense in value for value, but I would imagine it's worth reminding all of us that you are constantly canvassing the league to get a sense of the value of your players and even players that you would never have any interest in wanting to trade, correct?
All the time. I mean, like people say that, the trade deadline in February, but you don't just start calling teams like that week. Like there's going to be conversations in Summer League next week, about teams and, talking to teams about your players and all that stuff and evaluating. And that's where everything starts, right? You have a clean slate right now. It's like almost writing a new book or chapter. And it's like, okay, now it's Summer League starts the process, the evaluation process, whether it be your younger players or whether it be your own players on your roster. And that's where, the conversations, like you could have had a conversation in the night of the draft on something that maybe made sense, but you weren't ready to do it. And that's where it will continue, in 2 weeks from now and everything. But yeah, you're constantly on the phone and you're just talking about, guys, hey, would you do this? What are you thinking about this guy? And it just kind of, you just keep notes, right? You just keep notes. And then you kind of go back to those notes as far as when you're trying to do something.
I don't want to keep you any longer. This was a lot of fun. Bobby Marks, ESPN. You can see him all over television. Read him on ESPN.com. And make sure you follow him on X as well to keep us on top of everything that we need to pay attention to. You're the man, dude. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice, rr@gmail.com. Hope everybody's getting ready for a big fourth. What do you guys got on deck? You going to Bill's party?
Yeah, you going?
I'm not going to be here.
You're like, but that's crazy because you're kind of right there, no?
Yeah, but I'm not going to be here.
That's nuts. All right. The saga continues. But yeah, that's going to be great. Going to knock off a little early today if we can get all my work done. Play a quick 9, the public course here in Hollywood. And I think that's just a great start to the weekend. You know what I was realizing, though? I was leafing through the closet a little earlier. I don't really have like an American flag themed anything. I used to have one of those like classic Old Navy joints, which I think is perfect for 4th of July. Don't know where that is. I even looked, I think, a little earlier in the year. They're not really making that thing anymore. Like, I think you got to go like secondhand with that. And I just didn't want somebody else's 4th of July shirt. So I'll have to find something that kind of matches the colorways, but I don't have a themed shirt that I was really looking forward to. I don't know how I let that slip through the cracks.
That shocks me. No themed shirt.
Yeah. I have a couple Tommies, but none of them are like American flag, branded. So I don't know. I got to think about this one a little
Tommy
more.
Hilfiger?
No, Bahama.
How about you,
Serious?
Wargon has a much bigger week ahead. So you're getting married in a week.
Yeah.
I imagine you'd kind of dial it back I mean, I'm sure you're proud of the country and it's its independence, but you're about to lose your independence. So, mixed emotions.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're going to a
Nice.
friend's apartment. He's got an apartment like right on the East River. So we'll go there,
Apartment
maybe
party.
see some fireworks. He's got a grill. Throw on a sleeveless. Call it a day.
Sleeveless.
I think a sleeveless can take the place of an American flag on 4th of July.
You think
Is
guns
this
out means like it's kind of our militant background?
Yeah.
Did you buy it sleeveless or did you make it
Yeah,
sleeveless?
I bought him sleeveless.
See, I was hoping you were going to say it the other way. All right.
No. I don't like when like the hole is too far down,
Okay. No, I hear you. I hear you. I don't know. I just think, whatever. It's a preference thing.
No, I have a Chris Mullin Team USA jersey, but I'm also old.
Yeah,
So-
I just wouldn't do that one. I don't
That'll
think.
fly on the 4th.
It would. It would. I just don't think I would.
Why? What
Shoot
would
that
your
shot.
hesitation be? Chris
I
Mullin
wouldn't
would shoot it.
I haven't looked good in a basketball jersey forever. So and that's when I was still like
Yeah, but you're pretty big.
fighting weight.
You're
I
really
know.
you're so big that I think you could just you don't have to be sinewy. You can just be you, man.
Yeah, something about the way it lies. I just, I'll go football or maybe not at all. So baseball
Those are the two
jersey's
options.
great.
Yeah.
Baseball jersey's great, but not for the 4th. I don't know. I'm looking at it through the lens of my 4th dilemma. So let me just get that out. I feel
Maybe
I'm
like a
steering
Sakic
the show.
Nordiques jersey or a Dougie Gilmore Maple Leafs. But then that doesn't really, it's like, what are you doing? That's not really American.
No,
And
it's
who knows
kinda the
what-
opposite.
The relations right now, although I feel like they've improved a bit, it just hasn't been that topical,
Yeah, you're right.
So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Doesn't
things
grab
are getting better.
headlines. Same way.
To our friends up north, thank you. Okay, let's get to some emails here. I don't really know that this is even a question, but I'm just going to do it because we have further data on it. Am I creepy or just good at geography? 5'8", 225, gained 20 pounds, late night eating with 2 young kids. So started doing F45. SCP and Stanford Steve routinely talk about their beach vacations. I happen to live in the same town in Maryland in a much smaller house. I went to Maryland, had a lot better GPA than Scott, but likewise, my salary is now a lot lower. I also happen to vacation in the same neighborhood as Scott on the Delaware Shore.
Well, you got that.
Yeah. I submit these 2 text screenshots. The first is a picture of a friend of Scott on the beach. The second is me describing exactly where my friend and Scott were from my home office in Potomac. Happy 4th of July. Loving Kyle and Wargon contributions. Miss Ceruti. That's good to hear.
Don't we all?
Weren't we going to have him on today?
We tossed it around.
Yeah.
Anyone reach out?
This doesn't
Nope.
bode well for Friday feedback. But
No, that's not very good. Yeah, none of us reached out to him. We're talking about you,
It's the
buddy,
thought that
though.
counts.
Have a
Yeah.
great weekend. So, of course, love the pod as well. Thanks for all you do. Go Terps. So here we go. It's a picture of Van Pelt, we think, at the beach. His beach chair is facing up the beach, ocean behind him, if you can understand what we're saying. So he's facing
is
us
that
in
a
the
power
picture.
move? What is that?
Gotta think the sun's that way, right?
I don't know. I mean, he's tarps off in this one. It looks like he's looking. At first, I thought he was reading, and it's very clear he's on his phone. Somebody could be saying like, "Hey, how come you guys didn't do Twins highlights tonight?" It's like we actually did in the D block, 11:41. He's got sunglasses. He's got one of those nice little wagons for all the toys for his brood. But yeah, I mean, it's just a guy at the beach trying to relax a little bit, and this picture is like street level, right at his crotch. And so they text each other and they go, Scott Van Pelt, yes or no? Somebody else on the thread says definitely yes. And then I guess our emailer's like, he's in between these lifeguard stands and whatever. So look, honestly, you just wanted to send us a picture of Scott at the beach. I sent it to Scott. He's pumped.
What's the question?
There
It's
is
not a question. It's
Okay,
not a
great,
question.
great.
I will say I'm a little jealous. I mean, I'm not. There's a couple things I could be jealous of, but hearing about the beach wagon, my dad would never go for the wagon. He was like, we got a big bucket, and we just had to take turns carrying the bucket. Wargon, if you're starting a family, beach stuff, I'd say go
Get
for
the
the
wagon.
wagon. I've never got over just like watching everybody with the wagons, and I got this fucking cracked bucket. We can't even put water in it, but it'll hold all the bullshit. So I would just say spring for the wagon.
I think that's a generational thing, to be honest with you, because I think back to some of our beach planning when I was really young, and we could have done a better job. You know, but
It was
those
right there. It was like a pride thing. I don't know.
Uh.
Dad just wasn't
We
going
had,
to be
like-
those people.
We had the rigid, hard plastic wagon, but we didn't take that to the beach.
You had
Good
like
to
the
know.
flyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, people weren't doing that. In Manhattan Beach, I swear to God, it's like Army Navy supply stuff. Like
Yeah,
these
babies have
family-
wagons.
Yeah, these
not even
families-
strollers.
They're
got a Jeep
automated
wagon.
remotes. Nobody even has to pull the thing. It's like air in the tires, and they like takes them out in case they're going a little further along. Then just every single activity imaginable, perfectly packed in this thing.
Yeah.
You know, when we shipped our stuff to Africa in that campaign in World War II, those guys could have learned something from parents in Manhattan Beach with the way, because I guess the ramps to get the Jeeps off were packed behind the Jeeps. So
Yep.
Yep.
Heard that one.
yeah, not great, guys. But you know, look, yeah. So there was no quite. I guess it was just a creepy. It's not a great picture of our guy. He's not psyched. He said not flattering, as I just sent it to him. But I guess you knew exactly where it was. So yeah, we're 10 minutes in and haven't said anything really.
Nice.
Other than yeah, okay. Twin bed guy checked in, said thanks so much for reading the email. I'm going to opt for the full.
Nice.
Nice. Wargon, you won.
It's
Yeah.
the middle ground. Yeah.
There are some people that were saying, "Hey, Murphy bed, what's wrong with you guys? How can you know?" It's like I've seen pictures. I thought about getting a Murphy bed in a spare bedroom to make that kind of like another viewing
Activity space.
Yeah. You know, maybe just put up some katanas or whatever, and then it's like,
Murphy
I-
bed goes into a closet or something, right? It's not just like
Yeah, how do
it's
you
not
get one
just
in a rental?
standalone thing,
dude. I don't
right?
even think they're real.
Okay.
James Bond, You Only Live Twice. I think that was a Murphy bed, but you know, not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Let's stay on the beach theme. Dropping you have a beach house without sounding like a rich, entitled D-bag. Whoa. 6'6". Well, there you go, dude. You're 6'6". You don't have to worry about anything. 24, former D1 walk-on pickup comp Paolo Banchero, if raised in the Balkans. Big body who loves getting downhill and getting teammates involved. This guy might be the first dude who could say Boris Diaw and it be accurate. I'm checking in because I found myself in a new and slightly uncomfortable situation. The definition of a champagne problem. My parents recently purchased a waterfront beach house as a second home. The house is a testament to their hard work, and I'm incredibly proud of them. I've started spending as much time as possible at the house as a surfer. Oh, man, waking up with the waves has been my version of heaven. I just felt his heaven right there as I read that sentence. The new house, however, raises some questions when a friend or coworker asked me to hang out and why I'm working remotely with a new Zoom background. And I saw, it's because I'm in insert city houses in right now. This inevitably leads to the question of why I'm there and leads to me kind of awkwardly explaining my parents have a house there. I grew up in a wealthy area and work in finance, so it's not unheard of to have a second house, but the beach house location is exclusive. And as someone who has been told I give, quote, rich vibes, unquote, and already has the factors above, work sector where I grew up, working against me, I feel self-conscious that people think I'm some daddy's money Nepo baby. I also want people to be my friend. Because of my Lego collection and trivia skills, not just because of the house. Oh, okay. Any ideas on how to convey this information without feeling awkward would be great. Thanks for the help. Love the show. And Big Daddy Wargon's addition to the life advice. Need more fishing content. Hope to run into Russillo out in the Owens one of these days. I am planning some sort of fishing excursion. We're not quite sure yet. All right. Here's the deal. Here's my advice. It's going to be real specific. You are 24. Stop worrying about this shit. Okay. This is, I don't know what it is. And we could all sit here. I was thinking of like a little bit generationally of all these different things. It's like, all right, so our grandfathers, if you're my age, you know, WWII, parents, male parents, Vietnam concerns, draft. They did the birthday thing. It's like, dude, this is a disaster. And then, you know, my generation honestly had it kind of easy in the sense of like the normalcy of like, do well in high school, probably get into a good college, and have a really good chance, save some money, down payment, housing. Housing's fucked. No one can get into school anymore. It's way too expensive because of all the administrative costs that schools have just tacked onto all this bullshit. So like, there's something about this generation where I do feel like, is there some sort of shift where the challenges are actually tougher? I mean, we could sit in circles and debate this all the time. That was a pretty quick one. There are holes in that. All right. But what I do think is, I don't want to say like I think this generation is constantly asking themselves about like where they're at because they're updated on it every 30 fucking minutes.
Totally.
All right. Like I was talking with my college friends about it because we have one who's kind of like unhinged politically now and everybody hates it. And they're telling him like this stuff sucks, but everybody still likes the guy. Right. Then it's too late now. Like he's grandfathered in. There's nothing we can do. But we were talking and we were like, does anyone ever remember any conversation we ever had in that college, just sort of post-college, weird phase of thinking you're an adult and you're not really an adult, but you know what I'm talking about, like those early years post-college where you really think you have your shit figured out and you don't. But do you ever remember getting into an argument about politics with anyone in that age range and then not being friends with them again? Like never. It never happened. I knew like one friend who leaned a certain way. Another guy was talking about Newt Gingrich a lot. We sort of would make fun of him. And then I remember him saying something like, the guy's only running the fucking country. And we were like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, I'm about to order a sub. We didn't analyze things perpetually. We didn't. It was actually, I think, a nice little break in comparison to what I see today, where you are constantly analyzing like where you're at, what that person said, how that makes you feel, and all this different stuff. You are in a great spot, man. All right. And on top of everything else, it's not like you're 24 and killed it in Bitcoin. And then you have to explain to all these other people that aren't even close to your level financially, your parents saved and bought a house. For you to have this anxiety about how do I explain it? Here's how you explain it. My parents bought a fucking beach house and I go to it. That's it. There's nothing else. And if that person has some sort of weird issue, like the nepotism thing now, that's like, oh, it's as if anyone has any kind of advantage and then becomes successful, then you're supposed to feel guilty about it all the time because you're told to feel guilty about it constantly. Look, there are some paths I'll admit, I'll be like, that's bullshit. That sort of sucks. But, I just wish this younger age group would realize like you seem to spend a lot of time hating success and those that obtain success, or I should say attain success, then somehow feel guilty about it. So, and it's not even your house, dude, on top of everything else.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if I'd go that deep. Like everyone's got a perspective about who's got more money. And especially if you're worried about coworkers, like, the job could be awesome. Dudes will still find something to bitch about. That's just how it works. That's how it's always going to go. And then they find people to project their shit on too, if there's nothing great to bitch about. So I think there's no avoiding that at all. Like you're 24 and like, have a sick Zoom background. Well, dude, you got that rich kid stank on you and you're not going to get it off, whether it's true or not. But there's going to be certain people that, if you felt the need to explain the actual situation, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Your parents got something and it's not really a reflection on you. I don't think you get everything you ever wanted. You're like a spoiled kid and some people won't. And there's really no way you could change the perspective of that. So it's really, you got to know what your truth is, man. And it sounds like you're a self-aware guy with a little bit of rich kid stank on you, even if like, be
a little less self-aware, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Like I remember the rich kids flying around and I was like, it never dawned on us to hate any of them. I was jealous. I was like, what the fuck what? They get to do what? I was
kind of the opposite way. And I wish I maybe hung out with those guys once or twice in Poughkeepsie. I kind of didn't do that. But I was always like, those guys don't even know what the fuck's going on. I'm taking like the bus 1 year out of high school or whatever to my job, and like those kids, they don't know what's going on. I would have hung out with those kids actually. I think if only just I got to know them instead of like just putting that like those guys are different than me. They don't know anything about life. It's like, yeah, maybe they do actually. I think maybe they got one or two things figured out.
Do you guys think kids are getting like bullied less these days and they like can take less ribbing because of it? Because like I grew up with like an in-ground pool and like my one friend has called me rich my entire life. And like,
yeah, same.
I don't care. Like it doesn't bother me at all. And it's like, I can't imagine that getting under someone's skin. It's like such a nothing comment. Like your parents bought this house, go and enjoy. I would be worried about like me and my friends going there and like destroying it one weekend. Like that would be my biggest concern is like, how do I keep getting my parents to invite me back here?
Be nice to have that many friends.
Pool's a dude magnet. Forget chick magnets. A pool is a dude magnet.
Kyle, you had an in-ground pool. It wasn't sticking out above the surface a little bit.
No, it was not.
Not even a little bit.
My dad's house, it was an in-ground pool. Yeah. Hell yeah.
You were rich, dude.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Damn. Do you think above ground pools will ever become like the thing?
I don't know what would have to happen, man.
Right?
I really don't. I don't know what would have to happen. Dude, you just get hurt jumping into an above ground pool. Like you do it long enough, like you're just going to crash on the side there and hopefully you slide into the pool and not out in the little rocks around the outside. But like it just happens. Dude's like, you're in the pool a couple times. You're like, I could walk around the edge of this thing. You know, there's only like a quarter deck. The rest is just, I can't see how it would become more appealing. I think there certainly are more above ground pools in America than, below in ground, but I just don't think it'll ever be the cool thing.
Yeah.
Probably easier to cover though.
Wargon's shaking his head big time on the above ground. I just was like, can imagine some Instagram posts of some influencers out of like some compound near Joshua Tree being like, oh, they had this retro pool.
The vibes of the above ground pool.
Yeah. The whole pool is just a vibe.
No, I don't ever see it happening.
All right. You're probably right. Okay. Seeking your advice on reaching out to the one that got away. 53. No lifting stats due to a bum elbow. NBA comp is either Spurs Walter Berry, the truth, the original truth, or Bucks Frank Burkowski. Hiked in Montana with Frank. Shout out to Frank. Over 30 years ago while in college, for the only time in my life, I was gobsmacked for the first time when I saw Met Kate. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. There was some mutual interest. I kind of blew it with her. She was mature and responsible. I was not. Most of us weren't back then, buddy. I never really got completely over her, but we graduated and moved out of state for a job and we drifted away. Yeah, I mean, it's 30 years ago. So while still in college, I wrote a poem for Kate, but I never gave it to her. Two things recently. You guys ever read a poem for anybody?
No, not a poem.
No.
I didn't have the chops.
Yeah. Two things recently happened. I found the poem in my stuff and Kate turned up on social media. No stalking, I swear. She appears to be married with kids. Should I send the poem to her after all this time?
Get the fuck out of here, man.
I'll read that again.
No.
Should I send the poem to her after all of this time? I believe that you should share something like this to let the person know how they inspired you, but would it be fair to her husband or even to Kate? Thanks. I can confirm there are no red roses or blue violets in the poem. Yeah, I don't know, man.
He attached the poem.
Dude, this goes back to the perspective thing we just talked about. You are somebody who's like maybe been thinking about this girl and not even realizing it, and then you find this poem and she pops up on none of that stuff happened for her. None of it.
It's such main character energy where it's like nothing that happens outside of your life matters.
You're not there. You got no arc here. There's no story arc. You're just going to be dropping this uncomfortable thing into her, constructed life that she has. And it's going to end with you being like, what's she so upset about? Or what the heck? Or you're blocked. And then you'll feel sick to your stomach because you were like, I mean, it's not necessarily post-nut clarity, but whatever that is, when you do the thing you were thinking about and you're like, what the hell? You can't do this. You cannot do this. I wouldn't do this either, but if you reached out, I wouldn't even bring up the poem, dude. But I wouldn't reach out at all. This is clearly everything that you're thinking on this side of the line. It's not on that side at all. None of it. She wasn't thinking about you, any of this. If she's got a family and if it seems like she has a family, this is a no-go, man. This is just, you sit with that and you stew a little more.
Also, you have this nice little memory with this girl. The second you reach out, it's ruined.
Yeah. Yes.
That's totally ruined. Hold on to that.
What if the guy she's with now is not a poet? Look, I mean, I think we're all aligned. Look, my first reaction is I don't really like this idea. I mean, you don't know. You have no idea. Like, you're still thinking about her. That's amazing. It doesn't sound like it was, was it just like a quick kind of college hang? Or was it like a couple years,
Then you start getting that Wayne Gretzky quote popping in your head. You're like, you miss all the shots you don't take. And you can just totally frame it where it's like, what, can I afford not to do this?
Right. And it's been 30 years, right? So it's, I can imagine like there's no regulator whatsoever once you get like 60 or something. But again, maybe I'm just moving it beyond where somebody's thinking of my age being like, that's when you really don't care. So, it's all a moving target depending on what your age is and the tendency to not want to think that you're in the age where you're starting to lose your fucking mind. But, yeah, I mean, there's something, what I always think is the case, and this is where being older, I do have this perspective, is you may miss Kate, right? But you probably really miss who you were when you knew her. And so she reminds you of that time where, again, you didn't have real problems for the most part at that age. Nothing was a major concern. Look, after reading that Mark Twain book, we're going to have Chernow on pretty shortly. We just taped it, but like Twain, that book gets really depressing. But I don't even know. This is probably a little too much because it's also Mark Twain, but like he ends up becoming convinced that like there's only happiness as a child. And look, he's losing a lot of his family members throughout his story. So that would put you kind of in that place. This is too much and I shouldn't have done this, but we're not editing it out. I have to leave. I just need to get better. So we're leaving it in. I don't think that's like, because there'd be a lot of people going, hey, there's nothing better than watching your child accomplish something. Like that's a kind of happiness that's completely different than your own selfish happiness of all that time. But I do think this, I think I can be guilty of it at times when I'll think back to like, okay, what was true freedom? What was, the moments where you're not thinking about how every decision impacts where you're going to be in 5 or 10 years. Like I like that the stakes are higher now for me with every decision, but at the same time, like I think there's a lot of us that really miss who you were when you were younger.
Bliss.
And I think it can be a little bit like you have this idea of this person in your head, but that's not who that person is anymore. It's been 30 years. You're not that same person. So you're probably just missing a phase of your life as much as you think you're missing this other person. Now, who knows? I mean, maybe she's unhappy and it sparks some sort of conversation and then you're going to just feel like alive again in a new way. But I could tell you if I'm the husband and Kate's like, hey, this fling from college sent me a poem 30 years later, I would be like, cool. I wouldn't be upset with my wife, but I would just go like, it's okay. So where's this going? Like, is this a subscription thing? Are we getting these every month? Does he have a Substack? So
yeah, it's not going to be like, look at that photo. Look how crazy it was. It's like, look at this poem I wrote you. It's just totally different. It's not like a shared memory. It's something she's not unaware of, right? So, I like the way that you broke that down though, and instead of what I said was basically like, don't be insane. I like how you. Let's dive into that a little.
That is something about it being older though. Like, cause I had started talking to somebody from college a while ago and it was like, I really, really loved hanging out with this person. And yet it was like, what fuck? Like, this isn't, it was like, hey, what's new with you? I've seen what you've been doing. Hey, how's it going? Oh, whatever.
How long is it before you get to, hey, you heard from Todd? Like before there's nothing else, right?
Right. No, I mean, it was like, hey, I got divorced, and I was like, yeah, no, whatever. And then you're just like, yeah, but dude, like, all right, well, after I get done bartending, I'll be over, like, what the fuck? Yeah, like I have a mortgage now. Okay. Sounds good. All right. For those international travelers that may find themselves in any of the islands, as a UConn guy, basketball comp has to be a Husky that shoots a lot of threes. So Rashad Anderson. All right. Love that. Just wanted to pump Ryan's tires on his travel logs. Went to Palma with a group of friends and made a Vandal reservation based on his high praise. This, again, maybe the best restaurant I've ever been to in Mallorca. Not just the best restaurant in Mallorca, one of the best restaurants I've ever been to in the world. Was met with a little skepticism when I said this was highly recommended by a sports podcast host.
Maybe it won't be welcome back. Who was the skepticism from? The staff or whoever he brought?
From his party, his traveling party, I believe. Okay. Maybe I could just wear a funny hat and be like, oh, this burger is such a vibe.
Yeah, get some goofy glasses.
Yeah. This is the hottest taco in LA. That's what people are saying. The salsa they bring out is like a vibe. All right. By the end of the
You're
meal,
on this vibe crusade, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
I know. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Wait till you hear my travel logs. I'm going to impersonate an influencer for like 5 straight minutes, and that's just going to be a chapter. But I still don't know where I'm going. By the end of the meal, no one had a word to say, and we all agreed with Russillo was a top 5 meal that we've ever had. A little Palma Spain tip for the future as well. Tinto de Verano, red wine of the summer, is a must-get drink. All right, Kyle.
Would that be Tinto or Tinto? I don't know.
Tinto.
Did you even go over there, dude? I mean, what the hell was that?
I know. It's kind of like when somebody asks me a college football question, and I go, "Dude, what? No, I'm not in season right now." So,
you abstain from
Yeah.
answering? You don't want to ruin the brand.
No, I just don't know anything. Like,
Okay.
if
I
I'm
see.
out of season, and somebody's like, "Who's your favorite backup quarterback?" I'm like, you're speaking a foreign language. So yeah, when I'm not traveling internationally, I murdered that one. Somebody's
sorry, I was
Spanish
just
is a little bit. No, I deserve that. Totally deserve it. How can I call myself a culture guy giving out restaurant tips in Mallorca and not knowing? All right. I think we end on that note then. I got to be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good by me. Sorry.
No. I need it. I need it too, Kyle. Just because my name's on the marquee, it doesn't mean I can't get better.
Nice little reminder there. All right.
Yeah.
Keep that one. Drill that one in for next week.
Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to Wargon. Big things coming for our buddy. Thanks to Ceruti for just being in our thoughts, and Marcelino for running stuff here on the podcast, Ryen Russillo Podcast. Check out our YouTube page. We will have 2 extra features, we think, next week.
Swear.
Ryen Russillo Podcast, Ringer Spotify.
They were going to name me Michael Jordan. My dad was like, I don't think he can live up to it. So they named me Michael Jared.
Must be 21 and older and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is there. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.